explosive new documents from the Epstein files that show a little over 2 weeks before Epstein was found suicided, he alleged that his cellmate, who was later convicted and sentenced 4 consecutive life sentences for 4 murders, tried to kill him. You can help build the only independent news outlet always on the ground with the people for as low as 16 cents a day.
Corporate media, they've been lying to us for years, and you're going straight to the people.
Flint, Michigan.
Brooklyn, New York.
Government sending one more you to the residents of Chicago.
We need as many independent voices as possible, and that's why what you guys do is so important.
Covering what the corporate media covers up. Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. Explosive, and I mean explosive, new revelations in the Epstein files that, at the very least, begs a investigation on Epstein's so-called suicide. Whatever side you fell on this, whether you believed Jeffrey Epstein killed himself or you think he was offed, common sense people need to listen to this whole video. I'm going to give you the background and now the new evidence, because a little over 2 weeks before Epstein was found, allegedly after committing suicide, he was found in his cell, nearly lifeless, and he accused his cellmate at the time, who was eventually sentenced for his separate murdering 4 people. Epstein accused his cellmate of trying to kill him a little over 2 weeks before he was found committing suicide. Let me first, before we get to the revelations, if you've never seen this, there's significant information and I would say evidence that at least casts doubt on him killing himself. This is Dr. Michael Baden, a famous forensic pathologist. HBO had a series featuring Michael Baden's autopsies that he conducted. He's world-renowned. And Epstein's brother, Mark, hired him to observe the autopsy on Jeffrey Epstein. He concluded it was most likely a homicide. Let me play this from 2019.
And at the autopsy on day 1, there were findings that were unusual for suicidal hanging and more consistent with ligature homicidal strangulation, which included...
And it was suggested at the time that he committed suicide by doing what?
By hanging. At the time he was found allegedly hanging by a homemade ligature of sheets.
Are you saying you don't think it was suicide?
I think that the evidence points toward homicide rather than suicide.
Why?
Because there are multiple 3 fractures in the hyoid bone, the thyroid cartilage, that are very unusual for suicide and more indicative of strangulation, homicidal strangulation.
Let's take a look at what the medical examiner stated. After careful review of all the investigative information, including complete autopsy findings, the determination on the death of Epstein is below. Cause, hanging, manner, suicide. You say that his fatal injuries are consistent with homicide?
More consistent with homicide. And in fact, at the time of the autopsy, the doctor doing the autopsy didn't think there was enough information to say suicide, so she put it pending further study. And then for some reason, and they want to know, the family wants to know, why was it changed from pending further study to homicide afterwards?
So if you're there watching them perform this autopsy, you notice these 3 broken bones, and you believe it would be homicide. So that would mean another person would have gone into his cell, strangled him. Did he have any signs of trying to fight back?
Well, they took fingernail clippings to see if there's anybody else's DNA on it, and that hasn't been released. Neither has the information about whose DNA is on the ligature. A ligature was made out of torn strips of orange sheets, and whoever made it had to have a lot of DNA on it, and the brother's been asking that from day 1.
So this is not some TikToker, okay? This is one of the most renowned forensic pathologists, the study of dead people and the cause in the world. And he's saying 3 broken bones in his neck, unusual with suicide, more common with homicide. I also want to show you this. This is a former mobster who was in that same cell that Epstein was in, saying it's not possible.
In the 1980s, he served time in the exact cell where Epstein was later held. Michael, welcome back to the program. Tell us about that cell, and what do you make of these revelations that there is a minute missing from the surveillance video, Michael?
Well, listen, you know, I spent 7 months on that tier and in those cells. And the first thing I have to say, there's no way you are able to commit suicide. There's just no way. There's no way to hang yourself. There's nothing from the ceiling. There's nothing from the bed. You'd have to be a midget and work really hard to try to hang yourself. And I don't think you can accomplish it at that point.
No way to hang yourself in that prison, which brings us to explosive new documents from the Epstein files that show a little over 2 weeks before Epstein was found suicided, he alleged that his cellmate, who was later convicted and sentenced 4 consecutive life sentences for 4 murders, tried to kill him. On July 23rd, 2019, at approximately 1:27 a.m., a call for assistance in the special housing unit was announced by the control center. Upon my arrival, I was informed that an inmate had attempted suicide and proceeded to the cell. I observed inmate Epstein Jeffrey lying in the fetal position on the floor of his cell wearing a T-shirt and boxers. He was breathing heavily and snoring. I called out to the inmate. Epstein had observed him flicker his eyes and continue snoring. His neck was red with no abrasions. I observed no further injuries to his person. Let me show you the images. Hard to tell here, but you could see a little tint of red there. There were also images. They took images. Apparently, he had some marks on his knees and legs. That was an orange noose or something they found. The inmate was placed in hand restraints and staff was directed to retrieve a stretcher. As inmate Epstein was being placed on the stretcher by responding staff, he would open his eyes and observe staff. When staff made eye contact with him, he would hurriedly shut his eyes. The inmate was taken to HA unit dressed in a suicide smock and placed on suicide watch. While awaiting the arrival of an inmate companion, inmate Epstein sat on the edge of the bed and began moving forward as if he was attempting to fall over head first. When I looked away, he straightened up. As I turned to look at him again, he attempted the same act. I laid him down on the bed and directed him to cease his action or he'd be placed in restraints for his safety. At that moment, he stated, "Okay, I won't do it again," and gave a thumbs up. Because of his unpredictable behavior, the decision was made to have a staff member observe inmate Epstein. I left the unit in order to make staff notifications. Moments later, I spoke with Officer Redacted, who stated that inmate Epstein was alert and had indicated that his cellmate, Nicholas Tartaglione, had attempted to kill him and had been harassing him. He stated that the inmate had indicated that he informed his attorney of this matter. I photographed and spoke with inmate Nicholas Tartaglione, who stated that he was asleep with his headphones on when he felt something hit his legs and said, "Jeff, what are you doing?" He didn't answer, so he got up, turned on the lights, and saw him with a string around his neck. For your information, this inmate, Nicholas Tartaglione, is a former cop, and he was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of 4 men. Was sentenced Monday. This is from 2024. He was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences for the 2016 kidnappings and killings of Martin Luther, Miguel Luna, Urbano Santiago, and Hector Gutierrez. Tartaglione, who was described by Williams as a former police officer turned drug dealer, was convicted in April 2023 of 11 counts of murder, 4 counts of kidnapping resulting in death, 1 count of kidnapping conspiracy, and 1 count of narcotics conspiracy. And from the U.S. Attorney's announcement, Tartaglione brutally and senselessly murdered Luna over money and then ruthlessly executed Urbano Santiago, Miguel Luna, and Hector Gutierrez simply because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. He tried to cover up his crimes by burying all 4 victims in a shallow grave on his property. Needless to say, not out of the question that this guy would murder Jeffrey Epstein in his cell. Don't have evidence of it, but let's just say not of the highest moral fiber. And he is in prison for 4 consecutive life sentences. So Epstein, a little over 2 weeks before he was found supposedly had killed himself, accused his cellmate of trying to kill him. Let me read further. Upon further questioning, inmate Tartaglione stated that he sleeps on the bottom bunk, but gave it to inmate Epstein because he's old. He stated that he sleeps on the floor on a mattress. He stated that when he got up, he couldn't remember if he sat up or stood up to check on Epstein. He stated that Epstein was sitting on the floor, leaning to the side with his eyes opened, but he wasn't responding. He stated that the last time he saw him, he was snoring really loud. Inmate Epstein stated that he came in from a legal visit at approximately 8 o'clock, and staff handed him a copy of the Daily News. Nick, his cellmate, was on the floor reading the Daily News. He stated that he had given it to him. He stated that Tartaglione mentioned that he'd been in court all day in Westchester and was carrying on. At that point, inmate Tartaglione paused as if he was making the story up. I'm not going to read the rest, but he basically made a bunch of racist comments about other people in the prison, using the N-word several times. Duty medical doctor was notified and briefed. It was determined no further medical attention was needed for Epstein. A medical assessment was not conducted at the time of this incident due to the fact there was no medical staff available after 10 o'clock. Upon the arrival of medical staff, inmate Epstein was examined and treated by MLP redacted for a circular line of arrhythmia at the base of his neck, one section on the front with marks of friction with a small arrhythmia on his left knee. So he is accusing this guy of killing him. This guy says he saw Epstein on the floor with an orange noose around him. So how does he have marks on his knees and other places if he tried to kill himself, if he tried to hang himself? Supposedly that's what the cellmate was trying to say. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Doesn't make a lot of sense. Let me show you this here. This confirms that 18 days before Epstein was found dead, he told prison officials his cellmate tried to kill him. If you're justifiably on suicide watch and want to be dead, do you complain someone's trying to kill you? He wanted to kill himself, but he didn't want to be killed. And Julie Brown of the Miami Herald, who's been incredible breaking much of the Epstein scandal and getting it into the national bloodstream. She responded, "This is true, but then Epstein changed his story and said he didn't remember what really happened. The whole thing smells and was never thoroughly investigated." I would say that's an understatement. Why are we just finding out about this now if it was always slam dunk? He killed himself? Doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? It doesn't sound like somebody that killed himself. And by the way, they put him on suicide watch, and the psychological assessment after this incident was that he was not suicidal. He had a neutral mood. He had been talking to other prisoners about investment and kind of financial advice. He was eating. He was showering a little over 2 weeks before he was found suicided. And by the way, his brother, Mark Epstein, swears and has been public swearing he did not kill himself. And as I did a video on yesterday, Mark Epstein is in the Epstein files. He tipped the FBI alleging Jeff Epstein was murdered in his jail cell. I have reason to believe he was killed because he was about to name names. I believe President Trump authorized his murder. This was Epstein's brother tipping off the FBI in 2023. You don't need to be a conspiracy theorist to lay out the facts. One of the world's most infamous and famous forensic pathologists did observe the autopsy. He says the injuries are more consistent with homicide. Former mafioso who was in that same cell says there's no way actually structurally to hang yourself. And now you have over 2 weeks before, Epstein was complaining that his cellmate was trying to kill him. And oh, by the way, add to this, can't even make this up, Washington Post, new files show prison officials plan to house Epstein in a cell with Cesar Sayoc, a fanatical supporter of Trump who in 2019 was sentenced to 20 years in prison after he mailed explosive devices to prominent Democrats and media figures. This is who they wanted to put Epstein in with? We will stay on it. Support Status Coup for as low as $5 a month.